Today's interview is with Ryan Dumas. Ryan's a great guy who's actually living out of an RV right now, which I think is awesome, and kind of traveling the country a little bit. But Ryan is a lender, so he helps finance a lot of multifamily, but also hotels and gas stations. So he gave a great insight into what those asset class looks like in terms of an investment, in terms of lending. So I learned a lot in this one, and it was really interesting to me. So I'm going to talk to him for a lot longer about it as well. So really, really interesting. So stick around for all of that. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE Podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a review if you think it's worthy. And I'm looking to speak to as many of you as possible. If you're interested in real estate in whatever capacity that is, I'd love to get to know you, see if there's any way I can help you. So go to the link in the description down below, or go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com and sign up there, and we can have a great conversation about real estate. But before all that, enjoy today's great interview with Ryan Dumas. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we have Ryan Dumas with us. Hey Ryan.
How are you doing today, Barry?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm out in the Dominican Republic, but it looks like you have a pretty cool background as well. You're having a great time of things right now from what we just talked about.
Yes, we are.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into the conversation, do you want to give us a little bit about an idea about your background, what your current focus is, and what you're up to?
Yeah, just I guess basically here. I am married, four daughters, living in Clearwater, Florida, and sold the house a few months ago. Living in RV, meeting clients, investors on the way in certain towns. Just got back a month ago from Colorado in our RV and been to 10 states already. I've been in the commercial financing for 8 years. The last almost 4.5 now, I've been with GRP Capital. We're based out of Fort Myers, and we have an office in California. And I've been doing debt financing. Long story short, I started off about 8 years ago in the equipment financing, working capital side. A buddy of mine's like, hey, it's pretty easy. Just pick up the phone. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't just cold call. Long story short, I got into hotels first. That was my first niche, was hotels. My buddy goes, listen, about 40 to 50% hotel owners are Patel. You call and say, is Mr. Patel there? And if it's a no, you come back and you figure out a different name, or you look it up on Manta and you figure out, who that manager or owner might be. Did that, worked that company. It's called Blue Bridge. Went on to another company, made more cost of living and better pay. Living in Florida still, and I end up flying to New Jersey to work a company called Marlin up there. Took about a few months off in between. And ever since then, like I said, I've been with a company called GRP Capital. Started with a lot of hotel financing. The last 2.5 years, I've been doing gas station, apartment, self-storage, assisted living financing. That's the basics about me. I can kind of get in the nutshell about what I do, how I do things. Barry invited me to come on the show and speak a little bit about financing and investing, and wanted to give you guys my what I've learned the last few years and how I can help anybody else out.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, cool story, man. Cool story. What is equipment financing? What does that mean?
Like, say you bought a student housing and you needed to fully furnish it, or a hotel and you wanted to get the TVs for your 80 rooms. You wanted to get all your furniture, fixtures, and equipment, which is your furniture, anything for your lobby. But then I was doing the soft costs. Somebody wanted $100,000 to do the pavement in their driveway. They wanted to get $40,000 for the lobby. I did a lot of Hilton, Marriott, Choice, Wyndham hotels. And a lot of those were, $200,000 to $300,000 of FF&E financing, better known as equipment financing. But then you do the Hilton and Marriott brands, and they're usually about $20,000 a unit. So if you're doing 100 units, it's about a $2 million renovation. So I was doing equipment financing at 6, 7, 8, 9% rates. Now I'm doing the 2.6 to 4.25% rates on financing, and I like it much better.
What that's interesting. Yeah, you never think about that, right? You go into hotels and you see all the equipment, see all the beds and whatever. You never think for a second how they got there, right? You just assume that the hotel paid for it. I never thought that stuff would be able to be financed. What does that look like? How do you go through the process of deciding, hey, yes, I'm going to give these people a loan. No, I'm going to give these people a loan. And then what like do you get any collateral up against that? How do you structure that deal?
Well, I mean, different things. I mean, so say somebody comes into the deal and they're looking at a conventional loan, a local bank, and they want to go into getting the renovation, and say it's a Comfort Inn and they have a 10-year PIP. It's called a property improvement plan. It'd be $300,000 to $800,000, depending on how many units it is and what they need. And every few years, the brand changes signs and logos and everything else. So, it depends on there. We want to still make sure they're making their debt cover ratio. If it's a purchase and the other owner was an absentee owner and it wasn't renovated for a long period of time, we know that the renovations will get a higher rev par and they'll get more room. So in the apartment style, it's just like saying a value add. So if they haven't renovated the place in 8-10 years, or if it was an independent hotel, non-brand, and it's interior corridor, it could have been built as a Hilton or Hampton hotel, 20-30 years old. But if you put a brand in there, a Comfort, Quality, Clarion, a nicer brand hotel, instead of getting your $1 million revenue, you can now get 1.5, $2 million, and then it depends if you're going to sell that for a profit or keep it in cash flow.
That's really interesting.
But yeah, they look at some of those factors, but it's easier to get a lot of SBA deals I do on the hotels. I've done a $4 million hotel recently, and there's a $1 million renovation. So then now that $5 million hotel is actually worth like 6 or 7 million, just like kind of an apartment complex. Now hotels have been affected by the COVID now, so this year talking about financing versus pre-COVID in January is a little bit different. But now the markets, I mean, if you're by an airport, there was a lot of like Orlando, or even a market of Austin, a lot of those industries took a big hard hit. Some of the urban areas and some of the tier 2 areas have been as hit hard. If you're only down like 5-10% occupancy, I can get you financing pretty well, or refinancing, and include any of the PIP or renovation needs possible.
Wow. But say someone owns a hotel, right? They've owned it for 5 years and they want to then go ahead and do all these renovations, right? Say $1 million renovation, and you guys decide that you're going to fund that loan. What do you guys then do to safeguard yourself, right? Usually, if you're lending on that hotel, you give, say, an 80% LTV or whatever it is, right? And then if things go south, you can take back the hotel. But if they already have a loan on that hotel and someone else is in first position, say, on that, how do you guys go in then and do an equipment financing and safeguard yourself with that money? Is there a way? How do you guys do that?
I haven't done the equipment financing in a long time, but I mean, those equipment finances, they'll put a certain lien on it. It's called UCC lien. So they'll have that UCC lien on the company. So when you go to sell it, they're going to say, hey, you owe this equipment financing company XYZ $250,000 here. Or if it's a refinance, you got to pay that loan off. So they'll see that there. So it's not really like they're going to do a first position or a second position or a third. It's a little bit more of a UCC lien that they'll kind of hold on there. And there's you can get more into that too, but those rates are going to be higher. So some people think they can get a good deal by getting a conventional loan at 3.75%, and then they're like, okay, where's my renovation loan? And if they've owned it less than 2 years, you get the higher rates on there. So now they get a 3 or 4 year loan, amortized out 3-4 years, and they're at 7, 8, 9% loan on there, like 7-8%, but their amortization at 3 or 4 years is going to kill their cash flow. So what I do on those, as now transition is the last 4.5 years, is into their acquisition or their refinance. Every question I have is, do you have any renovation needs? And I'll look at the picture online and look at them like, are you still this brown building that looks like it's 20 years old? Yeah. I'm like, I don't need anything. And then I look at some pictures. I'm like, your furniture is pretty old, right? So and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, what do you need that this place is looking good? I'll just use my cash to put into it later. I'm like, no, let's get you the money now, so that once we finance you, we get you financed, you move into this hotel, you can raise your ADR. And of course, pre-COVID, a little bit different than it is now. So 95% of the loans I was doing a $100,000 to $300,000 PIP renovation loan. So that's kind of how it started off. I mean, if I do a Holiday Inn Express, I mean, like I said, those renovations can be $10,000 to $20,000 a room.
Yeah, that's good.
But and it's just like renovating anything. If it's an apartment, if it's a hotel, it's a gas station. When you have that nicest of that asset on the corner, and say there's 2, 3, or 4 of that assets, gas station, apartment, hotel, whatever it is, and you're the newly renovated one, you're the one that's going to have better reviews. I mean, it takes customer service too. But if you're nicely renovated, on an apartment, you're going to see the outside from the street. You're going to see, okay, is it painted? And you're going to go by and go, oh, that place looks nice, or it's trashy and needs landscaping that. And then your next thing is, if you're going into the area where the leasing office is, that'd be your second thing you're going to look at. So a decent leasing office, and then the units. So if you have real nice units, but the outside doesn't look good, or the leasing office doesn't look good, who cares? Same thing on the hotel is sometimes they're not painted nice. They don't look good on the outside. And then you go into that lobby area and you're like, wow, this lobby's pretty bad. And, it's just that idea. And that's where I came in a couple of years ago of consulting. So that's one reason why I wanted to go in the apartment side is I've been consulting on 4 hotels across the Northeast United States. And there were people that I financed commercially that didn't do really well on their renovations. Or they, just need a little bit of help. So I come in there and increase the revenues 20, 30, 35%, implemented social, like Facebook and some other ideas of making sure they had a website, making sure they're on social media, making sure that the reviews were kept up and all those things. So, I mean, it's just a little bit extra thing that I was doing with my financing. And a lot of the hotel owners I've been friends with. And ever since then, been financing a lot of other different assets, especially the apartments.
That's interesting. Yeah, the hotel industry business it's so interesting to me, especially obviously pre-COVID and COVID at 2 different times, right? But maybe explain a little bit about how hotel financing works, right? I understand apartment investing. I'm sure a lot of people do who are listening to this. Right, you have a DCI. You look at the class, where the location of the property. You look at the condition of the property, all that kind of stuff. Right. When you're looking at a hotel property that someone wants financed, what kind of stuff do you look at?
On the you said about the apartment financing. You said?
No, about a hotel. Like walk us through that process. What does that look like in terms of hotel financing?
So, I mean, it's for people that don't understand the hotel stuff. I mean, kind of like CoStar or something else is there's called STAR report. It's called STR, Smith Travel Report, and it shows what your competitive set is. So if you have a Holiday Inn, it'll show on there as your competitive set. Say you're in Dallas at a Holiday Inn, they'll show a Fairfield, a Hampton, whatever is in that same lower upper class tier. If you're a Quality Inn, they'll show Comfort, Quality, Days, Clarion, whatever's in that area hotel. So it'll show what the average daily rate is. It'll show the other line what the occupancy is. And then if you multiply those together, you get your RevPAR. So that's kind of easy. And it'll show T12, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 3 month, 6 month, 9 month, and it'll show each month. So I can tell you why. I can look at it and say, why were you down last year? Why were you up last year? Why was last August 30% slower? And I can look at it and say either it was sold or it was during renovation process and they had 20-30% of the rooms were down. So I've been doing that for 8 years. So a lot of times now one of my senior partners, Rick has taught me a lot of that, how I can look at that. And I have people that it's on their third or fourth hotel that don't even look at these things. And it's a cheat sheet, man. If I could have a cheat sheet for any business, they can say, hey, there's an apartment complex, a 20 unit here. Barry, I can tell you what all the other apartments around here are doing, how much their rents are, how much occupancy, rent rolls, collections on one little sheet, kind of like CoStar and everything else. As you just look at it, that's very important, especially right now into the COVID. So it's the STAR report. So we look at STAR report, they look at occupancy reports, of course, P&Ls. Tax return is the easiest. They're looking at that 1.2 debt cover ratio, but and it's kind of weird because pre-COVID, I could get you a 0.9 debt cover ratio and show that it's an absentee owner in California at a hotel in Texas and go, okay, the person that's buying this is a first-time hotel owner or a second generation, and they're going to renovate it. They're going to improve it by doing this, and this, or they're going to rebrand it. And here's a new trend report from the new brand. But during the COVID, they're looking at the market. So if the location in, say, Cleveland is the last August and September and October are the last 3 months that are completed. Most people are on phase 2, phase 3 of the COVID. Some cases did go up, but they're looking at that. And if their RevPAR is considered is within 5 to 15% of last year's month to date, you're fine. But some of the markets of Cleveland I've been looking at, and some other areas too, for the economy and mid scale are down like half of revenue they were last year. So we got to find out why. And if someone wants to buy it, it's a good deal. But why is it down at half? And we don't know what the government is, if they're going to shut stuff down for 6, 12, or 18 months. Because if it is, the hotel isn't something like an apartment. You don't live there for 12 months at a time and do a 12-month contract. And each sector depends on what you are. But if you're in an economy or mid-scale apartment, people don't have to be in a hotel. It's either for tourism, it's for corporate business, or you're on the way to another destination and you're staying there for a night or two. But truckers, stay a lot of the Red Roofs, Motel 6s. But a lot of those truckers now are just pulling over if they're very busy with their jobs in these essential markets. But a lot of the hotels are down. But certain sectors are down more. But we look at that STR report and the debt cover ratio. But I used to be able to get deals at 85% LTV, sometimes even 90. Now they're looking at an 80, 70, 75% loan to value. That's the deal. I mean, before I can get a $1 million renovation of the hotel, and now they're like, hey, we're only giving the person $200,000. But as of 2 months ago, things have changed. So I had some hotel deals that I couldn't get renovation money or none. Now I'm getting into $200,000, $500,000 to $600,000 renovation with the purchase or refinance of the hotel now. So they're picking up, but ever since the election, they've slowed back down a little bit, and the banks aren't in a hurry to give out, $2 million, $4 or $5 million, and not know what's going to happen when another president comes in.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've never really spoken to many people about the hotel investment industry. I stayed in plenty of hotels, but never really thought much more about it. Well, that's interesting that they were able to get much higher LTV than multifamily. Why do you think that is? Because to me, it would seem skewed. I would thought it would be the other way around, right? Because multifamily is a lot more stable. You have tenants usually in there for 12 months at a time. Everyone needs a place to live. All that stuff that people talk good about multifamily, right? But hotels, you're changing people by the night almost, right? And it's that constant trying to fill that hotel. So why, from a lending standpoint, why did hotels have a higher LTV? That would tend to mean that you guys see them as less of a risk, right?
Well, I mean, they're volatile during recession and everything else in certain brands. But the thing about it is hotels, there's a lot of hotels that are independent that their NOI is 40 to 60%. So I don't know how many apartments that are 40 to 60% NOI, net operating income or net income, but some of those are doing pretty well. Even the extended stay are at a 55 to 60% NOI. So but that's one of the things. If you get $1 million hotel doing $1 million revenue, there's possibilities they can generate 35 to 40% cash flow. I haven't seen the apartments do that, so I think that's one of the reasons why. And first-time operators, they're not always going to give the 85 or 90%. Sometimes you talked about before, sometimes they're going to want a second lien on something. So say you have a Days Inn, you're buying a Comfort Inn, and they're like, hey, I only want to put 10% or 15% down. And it's kind of pre-COVID because they're wanting 80%, but to put 90% down, say that bank wants 80%. If you're putting 10% down, they'll put a lien for another property that you own. I'm doing one like this now in Mobile. They're putting, I think it's like around 10% down, and the other 10%, they're putting a lien on the hotel. So if you're buying a hotel for $4 million and you need $800,000 down, they'll put $400,000 down, and they put a $400,000 lien on the other asset that they own, and it would be either a first position lien if you have no lien on it, or a second position. They usually don't do third or more. So that's how they do that, to cross collateralize. But they only do that now during the COVID, post-COVID, if it's doing well. But Mobile right now there's still 100% occupancy in Mobile with the hotels because of the 3-4 hurricanes that hit the Louisiana area. So they're staying in Mobile and just going down to Louisiana every day to do work, because a lot of the hotels that are in Lake Charles and other areas of Louisiana, they can't even live in because a lot of them were missing windows.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Every market's so different too. So there's, you can get into hotels and the Houston market. There's I think 25 hotels that are for sale, and I think I see, I don't know if I'm right, 2,000 or 3,000 rooms of hotels still being built. So, but it's it's an energy area. So solar and oil, but there's not many demands there. So I just don't see being in the hotel industry and being affected by that energy corridor not doing well the last 2 or 3 years. I see a lot of jobs leaving and going to other towns that just kind of wondering on the apartment side too, about investing there too.
Yeah.
About not investing there. Sorry.
But then, so you guys lend nationwide, right? On hotels. So how?
Correct.
So obviously two markets are not the same, right? There could be a big difference between a hotel in Las Vegas to a hotel in Texas, right? That can be a big difference. So how do you guys, and you guys can't know every market up front, right? I'm guessing you guys don't study every market, and then when a deal comes up, you're like, oh, I know that market. I'm guessing a deal comes up and then you study your market. What do you look for in a market when you're talking about the hotel in terms of what makes you feel comfortable? What do you guys like from a lending standpoint? That would be interesting.
Well, again, it's back to that star report of seeing the area and looking if there's, I even the people that are buying there, I'm like, why are you buying this? Oh, well, there's a new GM plant. Tesla's coming in here with, 5,000 jobs or 10,000 jobs. But if they say, hey, there's a mall coming in, okay, cool. Or it's by an airport. But, when you start naming 5, 6, 7 demands of IT companies coming by, corporations, there's a big hunting season for 3 or 4 months. But, it's just demands. And, we want a lot of demands there, and we want where there's not a whole lot of supply coming in. And you can tell that on the STR report. It says how many hotel rooms are in planning, and also how many are being built right now. And it'll give you, the rooms. And it's usually within like a 15, 20 miles. So, it's pretty cool. Like I said, the cheat sheet on it, but we're going to ask the client, why are you buying here? Oh, I have 2 other hotels here, and the area is booming. But a lot of people right now are buying the independents and the extended stay, because extended stay are always going to be busy. You might have a higher occupancy. The rooms get used more. It's kind of like almost the apartment style. So you'll live there for 3 months, 6 months, a year. But the independent, you don't have to pay for the franchise, which could be 7 to 15% of fees. So that's another thing. I know hotel apartments will have a a 3% to 9% management fee, but you still got to pay your managers at these hotels, and then there's these big hefty franchise fees that could be up to 15%, and then your OTAs, which are online travel agency, like Booking.com and those sort of reservations. They pay them 8 to 10% of fees on there as well. So there could be a lot on there, but if they're doing the local business and it's independent, there's, like I said back to earlier, they can have a good 35 to almost 40% cash flow, which is really high.
When you say 35 to 40% cash flow, that's of the gross income, right? And is that after debt or is that pre-debt?
Cash flow is after debt. NOI is before debt. So, I mean, that's cash flow. But now those are, the independents. I mean, some of them might be doing, $500,000 a year or, $1 million a year, depending on the area. But so sometimes they won't even claim the cash, and you're like $300,000 a year. But you're like, yeah, I make an additional $300,000 or $400,000 a year as well. So you got to kind of know what you're dealing with and about how much a unit brings in. And you got to know that value. So somebody says, hey, I'm in, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area. Right now they're at 95% occupancy. It don't matter if it's independent hotel, if it's a high brand. People are flocking to those areas where it's not in the big city right now, because of the travel, the COVID. If you want to be out in the cabins, every RV park we've been to has been almost completely full. It don't matter if it's a Monday, a Friday, or what. So it's been crazy how things have shifted. And I'm not saying downtown areas are not good. It's just a lot of people are moving to these urban areas, and people are spacing themselves, distancing themselves, but they're enjoying the outdoors like we are.
Yeah, that urbanization of stuff is really interesting, right? Because for a while everyone wanted to be downtown, right? You want to be close to everyone. Don't own a car, you bike to work or walk to work, and that's really how things were going. But it's interesting how the pandemic and COVID has sort of seems to have reversed that. All the demand now seems to be in the suburbs because everyone doesn't want to be in this congested area day to day, rubbing shoulders with everyone in their daily life. They want to be outside in the suburbs, enjoying that space. And it's really interesting to see if long term, if that's going to be a trend, or if we're going to go back towards the urbanization of stuff. It's really interesting to see.
Yeah, we think it'll go back to everything bounces back every 10 or so years, but a lot of people, I mean, there's cabin sales, just cabin sales for Airbnb or for personal use that are you can't find many deals right now. But it's going to be a while. I mean, I think it's going to last a while, but it's also gonna be a good market to invest in. A lot of people I know that are doing container homes and tiny homes, but it has to fit that area. I mean, you can get a place in Georgia and North Carolina, get a big house. So there's may not be a good place for tiny homes. I have a friend of mine, Wes Long. He's in Guntersville, Alabama, and perfect place for tiny homes. He's got a bunch of them. But yeah, I mean, I just different areas, different it's all about location.
Yeah.
Location.
How does from your standpoint, what you see from a lending standpoint, how do hotels compare to multifamily? I know you said that there seems to be a higher profit margin, right? That 35 to 40% of can be cash flow, which is not NOI, it's cash flow, which is quite a substantial number. If you were to compare both, just on a high level, what do you see the difference are? Which ones do you prefer? I know you've lent it on hotels for a while, but
I mean, for the investor standpoint, I wouldn't want a hotel on my side because you have to fill that place every day, every weekend, every week, every month. An apartment complex, if you got 60 units, you fill them for you fill those 60 units. Now, I'm not saying that nobody moves out within their first year, but with collections and everything else, it's a bit different. It's a little bit less hands-on. You manage the management company. The management company then takes care of the clients. If there is renovations there or not, just a daily routine of coming back and checking up and making sure everything's going okay. But the hotels are different. I mean, you can have a shift there of one exit. People are coming there off the exit to get to the hotel, You could have an exit down the road. All of a sudden there's a new mall there, new things open up. And that exit you had before the hotels might be getting worked on. I've had a place in Texas that we did a couple of hotels, and it was right outside Temple, Texas. And man, these guys were working on the highways, and that exit was closed down for almost 2 years. So the hotels all suffered. You know, apartment complex, they're going to find a way to get in there, and it's not going to take in as effect. But I like the apartments because I think they might not cash flow as much, and not all the hotels cash flow at 35 to 40%, but I think the apartments are better for the long run. Everybody has to have a place to live. May not be a house. You might have downsizing of people from houses to apartments, but the hotels, I just don't think that everybody has to stay in a hotel. The corporate travel for the higher brand hotels, about 70% of the higher brand hotels is corporate travel. Corporate travel is down tremendous. You know, yeah, that's going to come back in a year, 2, 3 years, but even then, I know Raymond James. I know some of these bigger companies out there that I have friends that work for them. They're pretty high up there. They might be selling some of their offices. They might be leasing them back out. 90% of their employees are working from home. The sales teams are exceeding numbers that they did in the office. So 2021 is going to be the year of the conversions. And also, like you said, some of those tier 2 areas, you know, Georgia, North Carolina, some of those places that people like to visit, fun places to live. People don't mind driving 30 minutes, 45 minutes to work. You know, when you're already in Atlanta, people are going to be, you know, I think a lot of people are going to be moving on the outskirts of there like it already is, but there's going to be more little towns that are going to pop than the bigger towns with these overcrowded and, you know, different things. I'm just watching the protests going on and some of those things. People are like, I don't want to live downtown. But downtown's going to pop again, and it's going to keep happening. But there's going to be lots of smaller towns that are going to do well, and they're going to continue to do well.
Yeah, I want to touch a little bit on gas stations because that's something else, right? We talk about multifamily all the time, you know, people talking about that. So that, you know, obviously we kind of hear about that. And I want to get to that a little bit with you, but you know, also, you know, like hotels, gas stations are a bit of an anomaly to me. You know, I'm not that familiar. How, you know, talk a little bit about a gas station, right? What do you guys look for in a gas station? What you like in a gas station, right? It's not the same, you know, as an apartment complex, right? You don't have quite the same curb appeal. You don't want it to be a mess, but if you need gas, you're going to a gas station, right? It doesn't need to be the most fanciest gas station, I think, right? But how you know, what do you guys look for in a good gas station? I'm sure the numbers first and foremost, but what else?
I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, you see some of these deals. I mean, it really depends. I mean, some of the people will make 2 to 3 cents on the gas when they don't have control of the gasoline, when they have a contract for 10 years at a time or more. If you don't have a contract and with the gas people, there's most of them will make 10 to 25 cents a gallon on gas. So then they can make some serious money. I know during the pandemic, the gas station sales of the inside sales, not a lot of people were traveling, so the gas prices were down. They weren't going much volume, but the inside stores were packed. They were busy. People were scared to go into a grocery store and wear their mask, but you know, hundreds of people in there, they're going to the gas station and spending $40, $50 where things cost twice as much. So you know, a lot of the gas stations, the inside, you know, kind of keeping it updated. There's people that will buy a gas station and there's empty room in the sides, and they'll add a Subway in there. They'll add a drive-through. There's some now that are adding the whole grocery, the produce stand, butcher market. I did a gas station that had a liquor store right next to it, and they opened up where there's actually, you know, the liquor store owner and the gas station there, so they can go to that same cashier, so they can save money by not having 2 cashiers, one for the gas station, one for liquor store. But yeah, the inside numbers are really good. It's, you know, they'll ask about how old the pumps and everything, the tanks are underneath there. It's a big thing, you know, because a lot of people will sell the gas stations knowing that you got to get all new pumps, all new tanks, all new debit card readers and all those things. But, you know, cleaning it up, making it look good. If you're the only one that has the car wash at the gas station, those are a big plus. but some people will have a very low inventory at their gas station. And the more inventory you have, the better prices you can get on the groceries, the candies, and even the beer. The lotto is very big. You don't make as much on the lotto as you did a few years ago, but still make pretty good money on the lotto. But having a good bit of food, groceries, liquor, wine, beer, and all those things in there, and gas station. Now they are hard workers, because a couple guys I know that I finance for, or some friends of mine that own gas stations, even if it's one or two gas stations, they usually work 16 to 20 hours a day. The hard workers. A lot of guys I had that own gas stations now own hotels or apartments now, because they wanted to go from the 16 to 20 hour work days to 8 to 12 hour work days.
So in a gas station, you can have multiple streams of income, right? It's not, you can have, like you said, those other stores that can be part, almost like a retail strip kind of, right? You can kind of have that. You have the groceries, you have the stuff in the store itself, whatever it is, all that stuff. And then you have the gas itself, right? That's interesting, because that obviously kind of helps a bit, right? With you have other income in multifamily, but it's definitely not as strong as that, right? You're basically mostly relying on the rents, right? If you don't have good rents coming in, you're kind of in a bit of trouble. But it seems like with gas stations, you don't have to purely rely on the gas sales to support that business, right? I know it's an important component, but
yeah, correct. I mean, you can look at the other gas stations that are getting very big now. That you'll see 16 pumps, 20 pumps, 30 pumps at these places. I mean, we've been at the one now, not to get too big into it, but, the RV and everything now, we've been at, what's it called, Dickies. And they got 100 to 140 pumps. And you go inside and they have 25 different kinds of beef jerky, 40, 50 different kinds of nuts. And it's just like it's a grocery store on steroids. And there in the back is a hunting section, a gift shop. I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, they've had they know what's important. Everybody gets gas. And when you're getting gas, you can go in the store and do your shopping. We were in there for almost an hour shopping and spending money in there. So, now I'm seeing also, and it's kind of a different subject, but the same, I'm seeing dollar stores now that they're getting gas stations to add to their dollar stores, like beside it. So I think that they realize if you come in there to get your 3-4 gifts, your groceries at the dollar store, Dollar General, Family Dollar, whatever it is, that if you can go there and get gas too, you won't be going to the Mobil, Shell, Texon, whatever it is, gas now. You'll be going to their gas station. So people are diversifying. They're finding other ways to make money, other streams, and people are thinking outside the box. You'll see a lot of things changing in this next year and a half.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to make it a sort of a one-stop shop now, right? Just, that rather than you go to this place and then that place and, get all the other stuff, they get everything under one roof. You get your gas, you get your grocery store, you get your beer, you get your Subway, you get whatever else, right, in there. And it's a one-stop shop. That's like such an interesting business model.
And you've seen it with the Publix. I mean, because they have the gas, the Sam's Clubs, the Costco's. I think they all have those. And you'll see other, gas stations. Like I think the Walmart has like a Murphy that they're contained with. But yeah, you'll see a lot of stuff in there. And I mean, it's not just the gas too. It's them coming there and getting the gas, and then coming inside and getting other food and snacks that they're making a good bit of money on. It's just convenient.
Yeah, from a lending standpoint, what does a loan look like on a gas station, right? Say I come to you and I'm like, hey, I've seen this gas station that I like, it's for sale. What do you guys look for? What, debt coverage ratio, LTV, what kind of rate are you looking at? What kind of term, what does all that look like from a lending standpoint on a gas station?
And it's the same kind of deal on those. I mean, I'm doing those mostly as an SBA. You can do those, conventional sometimes too, but they're 80% loan to value is a good number. I just did one as 80%, and I did one that was around 75% loan to value. It wasn't cash flowing at all, but they're looking same thing, a 1.2 debt cover ratio. Potential. You got a 1 debt cover ratio, and you need to be 1.2 where the bank wants. We'll do a 5-year projection in there, and look at the income to expenses and see where you should be with this asset, especially if it's a absentee owner. A lot of the gas station guys, if you some of these guys are, from certain areas of the country, of, India and the outskirts of India and everything, a little bit more northern Indian. A lot of the hotel owners are from the west side of India, the majority, not every. So you look in there, and some of these gas station owners will have 10, 20, 50, 100 gas stations. Now, they usually have different partners work in regions, or they'll have a partner work in each one. They'll give them a certain percent ownership, or they'll come in with a certain percent ownership of it. But like I said, it's a lot of work in there, but we look for the 1.2 debt cover ratio. If it's a non-cash flowing, we'll look at it a little bit differently. But look at experience. You're not going to get somebody that it's a first-time gas station owner that never really worked in one, and it's not performing, no cash flow, and they're telling us that there's a way that they can do it, but we need the business plan. I mean, what are they doing? Are they are you going to go with a different gas company? Are you going to put Lotto in here? Are you going to make the place a little bit nicer? Are you going to bring a pizza place next door where it's vacant? What are you going to do? So I mean, it just depends. But like I said, they're looking at like an 80% loan to value. We'll do some renovation money in there if they have projections of what they're going to do to make it a better asset, and give them some pretty good terms. And most of the inside sales have been up 25 to 100% since February, this last trailing 9 months.
Huh, that's cool. What do gas stations go for? I know it's going to vary. I know it's state by state, city by city, but like for example, and also how do they price it? Not how do they price it, but in multifamily, right? You can go per unit, right? If it's $100,000 per unit, you kind of get an idea of the price of that property. Do they go by per pump in gas stations, or is there nothing that's comparable really?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Sometimes they'll go by a cap, what their NOI is, but and some will go by a gross revenue times 2 or 3. But a lot of times, if there's a second register at a gas station and there's cash hidden, or they're not claiming everything, it's kind of hard, and you see the valuation isn't coming in. But a lot of those will go at a cap or a gross multiple. Like even the hotels, they'll go for a gross times 3 on a lot of times. And I'll get apartment guys coming here going, "Oh, I'm buying it at an 8 cap. It's a great deal." And I'm like, "Yeah, but just so you know, a lot of hotels are going for gross times 3 right now." And I'll look at it, and they're buying it like a gross times 5 or 6. And I'm like, "Listen, you're buying double of what the price should be." And he's like, "Yeah, but the cap." I'm like, "I understand that, but most of the hotel guys, don't buy at a cap only." So gas station, the same thing. But, if anybody has questions about gas stations, hotels, I've been financing, like I said, for 8 years, that I don't want somebody to get stuck with a different asset, because there's a lot of people buying the multifamily. There's a lot of people bidding on them, and, the prices are still a little high on some of those assets. But, if you're getting into a different asset that I have knowledge in, ask me. There's good locations, there's bad locations, there's good assets, there's bad assets. So.
You see, do you see more opportunity in sort of gas stations and hotels? Do you think that there's better yield in that compared to multifamily? Because, multifamily is super, super competitive right now, right? As opposed to those two asset classes, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, because like I said, most of the people that I have that are going into gas stations, they like it, but most people that have worked the gas stations for a few years end up wanting to go into multifamily or hotels, because it takes a lot of work. If there's no partner that you have in there, some areas, if there's not a whole lot of employees there, or they don't want to work, it's hard to find good employees sometimes. So, I mean, if places in a bad area, gas stations get robbed. I mean, so, how often does a management company of an apartment have to worry about somebody coming to lease agents? Are they loaded with cash? No. I mean, there can be checks or something else there. It doesn't really happen. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. And I see a lot of times that, somebody gets shot or robbed or some of those things. But I don't think there's a big demand. I don't know. I think I met one person in multifamily that wanted to go to gas station, but they didn't want to sit there and run it. They wanted somebody else to. But when somebody else is not running it, where are you buying your cigarettes at? Where are you buying your liquor? Where are you buying these things at? And you're consumed working there 12 to 18 hours a day, not like a apartment complex where you can have a management company going, hey, here's what you're supposed to do, and here's your process and procedures and everything else, and having them paying them their 3%, 4% management fee. I know people that are, gas stations, they make pennies on the dollar. So you're sitting there trying to make your 2, 3, 4, 5 cents on your candy bars. It's just they just work on volume.
And that's it. That's so interesting, man.
Different ball game. Everybody likes something for a different reason, though.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me. We all of us go to the gas station, always go to the hotel, but you don't think of it as an investment per se, right? You don't break it down and think how things work, and it's really interesting to hear you talk about this. So I appreciate it. But as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I like to incorporate some wrestling-related real estate questions on the show. So the first one is, I don't know if you had a chance to think about this one. The first one is, what would your wrestling name be? If you picked a wrestling name for yourself, what would it be?
Wrestling name for me. I thought about it a little bit earlier, but Wrestling Ryan.
Wrestling Ryan. Okay, that works. That absolutely works.
Wrestling Ryan.
Yeah, wrestling.
I had another name earlier, but I forgot what that was actually.
Okay. That works. Wrestling Ryan works too. So every wrestler has a special move or a signature move, right? What is your special move in real estate? What is your strength, you think?
In real estate, I believe in networking. I mean, I believe in the relationship, and networking is one of the biggest keys.
Yeah, cool. That's a good one for sure. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in real estate, you think? Something that's gone wrong for you?
I mean, more into the finance part or the real estate, because I can give you one occasion.
Let's go with the finance.
Well, I was right before this COVID, I could say it was February. I forget the date, what it was, when that stock market was ready to took the plunge. We had a big non-recourse deal. It was a $12 million deal in Fort Wayne, Indiana, a large hotel, I could say. And lost a good bit of money. It was, getting close to the 6-figure on one deal. So, I think it was like $85,000. So, told the gentleman, I'm like, hey, we got to close by this date. It's a non-recourse. They are packaging this up. The economy is getting ready to take a hit on some stuff here. The virus is coming over. Jobs are shutting down. So, he's like, you're trying to rush me. So I was like, I'll give you this day, but I'm pretty sure that the next day it's not. So he called back the next day. He's like, not ready yet. I said, okay, I'm pretty sure this is the last day. The next day he goes, hey, I'm ready to go forward. I called up the lender, and big non-recourse lender, and they're like, it's too late. We already packaged our deals at $200 to $300 million in deals, sold it out to their network, and it's gone. And they're not going to start anything as the economy was taking a big hit from the beginning of COVID, beginning of recession. So that was a big deal. I also had at that same time, I had a portfolio of 3 hotels in the tier 3 area that was going on. That was going to be I think around $35 million deal. So that was even bigger than the 12 million portfolio. So of course, right now, can we do a cash out, non-recourse on 2 mid-scale and 1 upper brand in that area? No. So the non-recourse in hotels is out of business, is not working right now for new deals coming up for at least a year to 2 years. So, but yeah, so I do a lot of SBA and bridge, but yeah, the non-recourse in the hotels. But I actually, don't really think as of right now, it'd be a good idea if that non-recourse was open for hotels, because even if they were doing well enough to pay their bills, if they're not meeting debt service, they'd have different covenants that to get like a lockbox, and then company would control that asset and everything. On apartments and other industries, I would still recommend it. But retail right now, a lot of the malls, if you pay attention, I forget what companies was that was losing its 6th mall under a non-recourse loan because they weren't servicing their debt. if they have, $5 million in loans to pay a year, and they're only bringing in $4 million, they're not going to be able to service their debt. So when you have a non-recourse loan, instead of them going after your assets and everything, they it's a bad boy carve out, it's called. They just go after that asset, get everything they need, and you just hand the keys back to them and walk away.
Interesting. Was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it? Maybe a deal that or maybe your first deal you ever did, the first finance deal you did, or
I don't really recognize an exact one, just because I do love what I do and everything, but there was a couple large deals that I think I might have kind of stood way back from, that people were wanting to build a $50 million, $100 million hotel, and I was like, whoa, what's this? But it wasn't our appetite, and I knew that, but really excited about getting some of those deals done, but it wasn't something that our company was going forward to, because we're more in the $1 to $15 million range on the hotel side. So a little bit of that, I had a couple of the larger deals that kind of worked on and everything, and maybe California area that I had, but just kind of fell apart. But that's probably the only thing I can think of offhand.
Okay, cool.
Nothing crazy or anything else, because I usually vet out what I can and can't do. So if I think I can't do something, like, hey, I suggest going to a local bank, I suggest going to a private lender or whatever else, instead of doing something that I think I can't do, and then all of a sudden I get off that ring and I can't do it.
Cool. Well, man, thank you so much for making the time. I know you're a busy man with 4 daughters. I have 1 son, and that's almost enough for me. But 4 daughters, I'm sure you got your hands full. But I think it's cool what you're doing with the RV and traveling and everything like that. That's a really cool thing. But before we go, do you want to tell us somewhere where people can reach out to you, how they can find out more about you, your website, Instagram, any of that good stuff that people can get a hold of you?
I have a group called Traveling Commercial Finance Guy, Ryan Dumas. And then I have a commercial financing for apartments called Commercial Financing 5 Units Plus. Those are both on Facebook, as one's a page, one's a group. You can give me a call at 727-729-2647. Also, I have an email address. It's rdumas, DUMAS, at grpcapital, spelled out, .com. Do commercial financing all across the U.S., like Barry said. And I'm looking to get into my first investment here as well, so I can get the residual income and live in Clearwater, Florida, and travel around in my RV, meeting investors and clients. Let me know how I can assist you.
Cool. Awesome. One last question. I'm sure everyone wants to know. What's for dinner tonight? Hot dogs, burgers? What are you guys grilling up tonight?
We have some friends at the RV place we're at before we go to Tennessee, and usually we're meeting at somebody's house and having dinner. They asked if we want to come over to their RV and have Taco Tuesday.
Nice.
So yeah, it's kind of fun. So I'm having some little dinner, and then I take off, and like 4 daughters. I have my 15-year-old daughter has a soccer practice today, so I going to drop her off at soccer, and 7:30 to 9 o'clock. So my days are late, and the wife is busy with the kids all day long. So yeah, Taco Tuesdays with some friends in the RV park right in Clearwater.
Cool. Well, thank you, man. Thank you so much. It's been really, honestly, a fascinating interview. That was so interesting to hear about hotels and about gas stations, man. That was awesome. I love that. So thanks for making the time, man. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your night.
You too, Barry. Nice talking to you, man. Have a good day.